Hi, I'm Emma Muir, soul coach, energy healer, and well-being guide, and an unapologetic curious soul. Connected Conversations brings well-being, love, and connection through authentic and open conversations, sharing amazing people who are being of service through their businesses, talking about all aspects of well-being and healing in life and in business. As a soul coach, I help men and women unlearn and unfuck themselves from childhood experiences, patterns, programming, and trauma. I know deeply learning through my own path to well-being over the years, all the different parts and habits that are needed to live a heart-centered life filled with well-being. Through my curious nature, I delve into connected conversations showing their journey in business and in life to inspire you to take the path to your well-being. The truth is, we're better supporting one another. We're better sharing our gifts to help one another in deepening our connection to ourselves and others. Thank you for watching or listening. I'm grateful for all your support, for sharing, for liking and commenting. All of you is welcome here. Here is our wonderful guest today to introduce their gifts and passion to you.
My name is Angela Maree, and I'm the founder of Heal Thy Money Co. I was intuitively guided to create my business, Heal Thy Money, which has rapidly grown to support hundreds of women-led businesses. We do things a little bit differently at Heal Thy Money and bring a feminine, heart-centered leadership approach to something that is traditionally quite masculine. Heal Thy Money is an accounting business infusing the practical side of money with spirituality, feminine energy, healing, intuition, compassion, and empathy. We infuse a money healing journey into the practical stuff. From my lived experience, you need both the practical and spiritual elements of money. The key is to heal the thoughts, fears, and subconscious beliefs blocking your flow and set up the systems and structure to allow you to grow and expand.
Welcome to Connected Conversations, to bring well-being, healing, love and connection to our everyday lives through open and authentic conversations. I am sharing time with Angela Maree, who is a chartered accountant of 25 years plus, a money healer, best-selling author, investor, Pilates instructor, Lightworker, and a lover of all things mind, body and soul. So clearly us sisters need to have a conversation because it's right up my alley. Thank you so much, Angela, for sharing your beautiful time and energy with us today. And so wonderful to share the unique way that you help women move past their blocks and into abundance. But I do want to start with your background because it wasn't in this spiritual little realm. So I'd love to hear about how that all began.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, Emma. I'd really love to be on your show.
Connected Conversations. It's all right. You don't have to remember. I do. It's like my children's names, you know, like I need to remember them, but no one else does.
So yeah, my journey surely has been a twisting one, full of turns and bumps and hurdles. But I started out in the corporate world as a chartered accountant, and I did that for a long time, about 20 so years. And for me, I was always good at my job, but I was never really suited to the corporate world. And at the time, I guess I was always trying to make things work and make myself fit into, something that I didn't really belong to. And I actually left doing accounting and went into following my heart and started teaching Pilates. And I did that full time for about 5 years. And during that period where I was teaching, I went through kind of my spiritual transformation and healing journey. And it was through that journey where I started kind of opening up my intuition and started getting really connected to myself and what I was being guided to do, and just listened to what I was being guided and started taking and action steps and coming up with all these ideas. And I was being guided to go back to doing accounting, which for me, I was like, no, man, I left that.
You're like, I've done that, universe. What are you? Have you lost your mind?
Yeah, I'm kind of like, I shut that door for good. But yeah, it is something that I was good at, and I've got the skills and knowledge, and kind of in the space that I'm in, so working with health and wellness businesses and spiritual entrepreneurs, it's not a skill a lot of people have. And so I came back to doing the accounting, but doing it in a way that stayed really true to my values and who I was, and kind of took all the things that I didn't like about the corporate world and just made it my own. Wasn't really accounting that I didn't like, just the kind of the corporate structure and kind of.
Yeah, I want to go back to that if that's okay, because you said you weren't suited to the corporate world. Like what was happening that made you kind of just have those check-in moments of like, oh, that doesn't, what happened?
Yeah. Well, like, I guess I never really quite understood it. But like early on in my career, I was working for a big accounting firm called PricewaterhouseCoopers. And we did have a lot of women in that space, but the women who were in the higher levels, so partners and directors, just they weren't very nice people. Like, I feel like they had to sell their soul to get there, and the way they treated the people underneath them like wasn't very nice either. So I kind of looked to those women above me, and I was like, yeah, I really don't want to be like you. And just what was required to get there was a lot of push and hustle and sacrifice, and I just didn't think it was worth it.
Yeah, look, and I mean, that's more and more coming out. You know, I have courses for businesses around well-being and, you know, spiritual and, you know, actually bringing them home within themselves. So I get where you're coming from, because when you're looking at those larger organizations, they're almost like this, you know, entity onto themselves, you know, where they just kind of have their own behaviors and their own, and it just is a bit devoid of connection.
Yeah, and I think as I kind of learned more and more about myself through my spiritual journey, kind of come to understood that I'm quite highly sensitive and empathic, and like, it's quite a negative environment. Like, you kind of bond with your co-workers over how much you hate your job or your boss. Just, I think sitting in that office space, I would just absorb everyone's negative energy, and kind of at the time I didn't really understand what was going on. So it just felt really heavy to me all the time being in that environment as well.
If it's okay, I'd love to explore that a little bit more, because I think people listening, there would be people that would be identifying with what, you know, like actually going, hey, I kind of feel like that. Because I know for myself, working it was in corporate, and I was also working in retail management as well. And I had that same thing. I would come home and feel like I had to wash myself. And just thought, oh, it's from the day, and, you know, it's from whatever. But actually looking back, I can see how much I absorbed of the customers, of people I was working with, of the environment. And, you know, you got a little bit of sunshine every now and again with someone that you did actually connect with, that was, you know, in your kind of vibe and energy. But yeah, I can appreciate that. So, but in a corporate sense, I think there's still so many, and look, we have had a huge shift over the past couple of years. People have left their workplaces in droves because businesses cannot support the well-being. They're not geared to. So what would happen in a day? So how, you know, when you came home, you know, what was it like for you in that energy bubble, and then stepping out of it into your own kind of little cocoon?
Yeah, I think back then, like, I always kept super busy. So I had a lot going on outside of work. I would go out a lot. I would kind of all different types of entertainment, whether that be bars or restaurants or live music or like theatre shows or whatever it was. But I kept myself really busy and entertained. I did lots of traveling and I lived my life outside of the office. But yeah, the office was just kind of this 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, where like energetically I was just kind of at the bottom of a pit, if you know what I mean. So yeah, it's, I wouldn't say I got burnt out, but I did actually take lots of breaks away from the office. I did a heap of traveling through my 20s and 30s, and would take like month-long trips and year-long trips sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because how I've had clients around this as well. So it's interesting that you're saying it because it kind of does happen, and when you're sitting in it, you don't really recognize how much it's taking from you. So of course, we're human beings, and like just the fact that our nerve endings are on the edge of our skin is actually where we look to find enjoyment in our life, and that's actually one of our greatest. The purpose is to enjoy our life and enjoy who we are, and it speaks volumes that you are feeling. And I hear it a lot with people that are working in jobs that don't, they look for the feed afterwards. Like, how can they feed themselves? Because at work, it's kind of like, I'm here and I'm doing it because I think this is what I've got to be doing. And, there's no sense of being looked after in terms of your well-being, emotional health and mental health and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it speaks volumes that you were like, right, I've got to fill the time now. I've got to get out and I've got to actually fill the enjoyment into my life.
Yeah.
It's a huge portion.
Yeah. And actually, that's when I got into Pilates. I would every day would go to Pilates after work.
Right. So you're like, right, finding the way to the.
Yeah. But I think I always, from early on, I always kind of knew that I didn't really fit in, but I did try to make it work for a long, long time. And I guess I thought just doing a good job would be enough. But yeah, I got
Sorry, enough for who? I'm intrigued by that. So, like, doing a good job would be good enough for who?
for like to have a good career and like progress and do other things.
Yep. Okay.
But, yeah.
Tick the boxes. Is that what you kind of mean? Like, just tick the boxes. Yep. I'm doing a good job. So that means this, and yep, got it.
Yeah. But without playing the politics and getting too involved in all that stuff. But unfortunately, no. So yeah, I came to the end of a project at a job, and so I was needing to look for another job. And I remember going around to recruiters and they ask you that question, so where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I kind of had like this out of body experience where I like was looking down on myself because I'm a terrible liar, and I could just like hear myself saying these words, I want to be this, that and the other, but like they had no resonance with me. And I think that's when I knew, I'm like, yeah, it's time to make a change. I can't really keep doing this, and like it's kind of like you're lying to yourself saying, yeah, I want these things, but I didn't really.
I love that you recognize that, because I mean, I know I did it. I can look back on many job interviews and telling people rah 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 rah, and actually when I look back I think that's not for me. It was just because I thought I had to, like I needed to be in this role, I needed this. There's stuff to have in life, there's holidays and there's toys and there's like just filling up my life, but not actually filling me. So well done for having that beautiful moment. But then you went to Pilates, like amazing. I love it. You've gone from being a chartered accountant to, how did you choose that?
Well, I'd wanted to do it for a really long time. I think I started doing Pilates like in my early 20s and absolutely loved it. And yeah, I'd wanted to do a teacher training, and I never kind of got around to it. But it was always in the back of my head that was something I wanted to do. And then when I moved to Melbourne, I did actually go and do my teacher training. So when I left corporate, I already had that qualification under my belt.
Oh, right. So then you just went off and found some places. So how did then Pilates teaching lead to healing? How'd that roll out? I mean, I'm not surprised, but I just want people to hear about it.
Yeah. So for me, I really enjoyed teaching in like a small group environment. I did do some big group classes, but kind of my favorite was where I was working in more a clinical Pilates setting. So working people's injuries and that type of thing with groups of up to 3 or 4. And so I was working with healing people's bodies, and I started bringing in kind of, like I would see like some pain people would have in different parts of their body would disappear with movement, and that stuff, like having movement is like WD-40 for the body. So it's something that, a lot of things can benefit from just moving your body. But then you can get some chronic pain that doesn't really respond 100% to movement, and it kind of stays there for months and months and months. It doesn't really ever go away. And that type of pain generally has an emotional underlying thing to it.
Always. We're saying generally, but always. Always.
Right.
I've never met, and I've spoken to chiropractors, and when I start to talk to them about the emotional connection on the body, the healing I do, 100%, always.
Yeah. So that type of thing wasn't necessarily acknowledged in the space that I was in. Like people didn't come to Pilates to have their emotional stuff worked on. But my clients would often comment, oh, it's like coming to Pilates in therapy at the same time. And so it was kind of a natural thing that, just it's part of who I was, kind of talking to people and finding out what's going on in their lives and talking to them about it, and kind of, bringing that awareness to them that maybe their lower back pain, the reason it's not going away is because of all these financial troubles they're having over here and things like that. So
it's a bit of
start to blend after a while.
Such a light bulb moment when you start to connect that soul and body and mind, and have the alignment with it. For yoga, it is about, I've been doing yoga for a long time now. I don't even know how many years, since my son was very little, and he's now 15. So it's been a long time. And, there is still times when I'll have an emotional release on the mat. I'll do a particular move and I'll be really, constricted, and then, it releases and I'm like, whoa, just crying on the mat here. So, I do get that. I think you're right. Absolutely. Movement for the body is a must. It's like you have to move to have some form of well-being in your life. So did Pilates lead to your healing, or it led to healing, like you understanding that you had, the qualities and the nature of healing within you for others?
So I actually came to the healing side of things through a relationship breakdown.
As we most of the time we do. There's got to be some kind of explosion in our life, doesn't there, for us to recognize?
I would say that was definitely my dark night of the soul moment, where I was like a deer in headlights, just going, what just happened, and how on earth did I attract that into my life? Because you're kind of a bit flabbergasted, like, I'm this nice, beautiful human, and why is this happening to me? That sent me on a really deep healing journey, actually, where I come to understand that like I held on to a lot of ancestral trauma that I
Mm.
did like down my ancestral line. So it wasn't necessarily anything specific that had happened to me, but I did get like I started getting intuitive images of things that had happened, but they'd happened to my mum, not to me.
Mhm.
So yeah, just but that's what was coming out when I was kind of tapping into the depths of all the grief and emotion from it. So yeah, but that I worked with a lady called Melanie Tonya Evans, who specializes in narcissistic abuse. So I just did some of her kind of quantum healing meditations, and they worked wonders on me. And I still use them today when things come up. Because yeah, there's always deeper layers to heal, and all sorts of different characters in your life that are like, oh, there's another version of that person. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so true. I mean, I often say to clients, we're not going to deal with your shit all at once, because if we did, you'd be a puddle on the ground, and I don't know how long it would take you to get up. You cannot deal with everything all at once. You have to go through in layers. You deal with that layer, right? You've got that. You've created new habits, and then you can rock through the next layer and the next layer and the next layer. I've only met a couple of people that have, not my therapies, but done therapies prior to me, where they've tried to force them in through to everything. And yeah, two people I know have had nervous breakdowns. Yeah, based on it. So, you've got to go through in layers. Like, you've got to dip your toe in. I mean, it'd be like you with your corporate job, having these inklings of, this isn't for me, and they're an asshole, and that's not okay to treat people like that, and just leaving your job and having no backup. But doing the Pilates, you're doing the training, you could walk away with a bit more confidence and going, right, well, I know what my next step is. I know where, because you've got to, as humans, we need purpose. Like, we just
Yeah.
do. We love it.
Yeah.
Well, that's beautiful. I mean, well done for delving into your own, dark little places, because it's definitely not easy to do, but the light on the other side of it. So then, how did you transition then into your own business? So from Pilates, then where
Yeah.
was the transition there?
So when I left corporate, I had this idea that I wanted to start my own business, and I did a whole bunch of business courses and came up with the idea of doing online Pilates. And this way before COVID, like it was kind of 6-7 years ago, before online exercise was a thing. And so I built this website, and I did all these Pilates videos, and had an Instagram account going, and so I tried to get this online business up and running back then. And I created like a kind of mini course thing and tried to sell it, but I never ever made any money out of that venture.
Oh,
It was just, one of those things. I created all this stuff, but yeah, I just couldn't get anyone to buy things, or come on as clients or whatever. And it frustrated the hell out of me. Back then, I was just like, I don't understand what's going on.
you're like, I've done all this fucking work, god damn it! Like, come on! But
Yeah,
I mean, look, I don't know part of the story that we're getting to, but what great grounding! Because I'm like you, I've created so many courses and so much stuff, and then finally come home to what I do now. But I look at it and think, God, if I'd only thought of this like 6 years ago, it'd be great. But
yeah,
you can't. You needed that time.
yeah. And like at the time, I really resonated with Pilates and kind of felt like, it was my purpose and my vision and all of that. But interestingly, so that was pre the healing journey from the relationship breakdown. And then when I went through healing a lot of the underlying fears that came up from the relationship, it was, you know, like fears of abandonment and fears of rejection and criticism and persecution, and they were kind of what was being triggered before that question. And so working on those fears through the kind of portal of the relationship breakdown released a whole heap of stuff. So when I came up with the idea for this business, which came to me in a dream one night. So when I just kind of started helping people do tax returns on the side, Pilates instructors actually. So there was a bit of a need in the industry because we all work as sole traders, and generally have no idea of the business side of things. So I was helping colleagues out and things like that. There were a few issues in the industry that were tax related, like being entitled to superannuation and things like that. So I got involved with helping people understand the tax laws and be able to stand up for their employers and things like that. So that's how I came into doing it. And I think because I didn't have like these fears of rejection and criticism as much, like they're still there to an extent, but always be there. But I think energetically they weren't blocking my flow anymore.
Okay.
So when I started this business, and probably because it is more aligned with what I was meant to be doing as well, things just started to flow, and finding clients was easy. People were paying me money, and it all just started to happen. That's when I was like, woohoo, without really having to push or hustle for anything. It just kind of flowed much more nicely. And so, that's where I made the link, because like me as a chartered accountant working in the finance department of all these different businesses throughout my career, and then I couldn't make a business work for myself. So it wasn't that I didn't have the skills or knowledge. So there was obviously something blocking me, and kind of made the link with those fears, kind of the same fears I feel underlie everything. And I think like if you have health issues, then you'll find some of these fears hanging out underneath those. Just made the link with the money side of things as well. So having healed them, everything for me just started flowing from there.
I love it. And you're right. I mean, one of our primary needs as a human is to have connection. So when we're not connected to our purpose, to the people around us, to within ourselves, then of course anything that sits in our ego is going to rule the show. And quite often they are about the rejection. They are about, like what people think about us, that whole shame story. So 100%. I think we don't really acknowledge that stuff. Why do you think that is? Like, what's with clients? Why do you feel like it's one of the things I don't want to acknowledge?
Yeah, it's a big one, because like as someone that's been through the journey of healing themselves and kind of is a healer, you do want to see others heal and be able to help them. And one of the biggest lessons is letting go of other people's journeys, because we certainly don't have any control over them whatsoever. But I think people have a lot of shame around trauma. It's something that's been instilled in us as a culture, in our upbringing and things like that. Like men are a prime example. Like as young boys, they're told not to show emotion, and they're called names if they cry, or they're called that they're a girl or whatever it is. And like even me growing up, you know, I was always told that I was too sensitive and this, that, and the other. So you kind of learn that, oh, there's something wrong with that. And so you bury it, and has a lot of shame attached to it. And also, like, I had a relatively loving and normal upbringing, I would say, but I still got trauma out of that. And so I think people can have a hard time acknowledging that, like, life wasn't all roses and berries like they thought it was, and maybe there's some things that were wrong. But I feel like it's shame that underlies a lot of it, and people just don't want to acknowledge that it's there, so they try and keep it hidden.
Yeah, oh, look, I 100% agree with you. That is, the bulk of the work I do with a client when I'm first working with them is just dealing with their shame story and finding their way through and having to, change the patterning and the programming that's come from those experiences and trauma, and finding healthy ways to move through it. But, you've got to feel it first, and that's what you're acknowledging, is that we often don't acknowledge that something had an impact on us. And, everyone's banging out the word trauma right now, and I'm not saying that to dismiss it, but or minimize it at all. I had my fair share and experienced my fair share in life. So I absolutely understand. But I think there's also this comparison as well. Well, mine wasn't as bad as theirs. And that's part of the shame story. Well, my life wasn't as bad as theirs, so I can't really, because in Australia, we don't really like complainers, like, you don't like, and that tall poppy stuff. You don't want people bragging, but you don't want people complaining either.
Yeah.
We really want to cut people's voices down in Australia, don't we? I mean, really, like, we've got those attitudes. But I get what you're saying. I think, shame, is we often look at fear being our most powerful emotion, but, the majority of people, once I get under the fear story, I'm like, yeah, it's actually shame. It's not fear, because fear is a pretty basic primal emotion, and it really doesn't have to impact most areas. But I want to know then, what are so then you transitioned into your own business. What were some of the first aspects that you started with? It's obviously doing taxes and, that kind of, sort of, I guess, the most known kind of accounting that there is. What other services came to life through that?
So yeah, I started out doing tax returns for Pilates instructors and some studios, and doing a bit of bookkeeping for them as well. So for the kind of bigger studios, and it did evolve from there. So I created my 12-step Heal Thy Money journey. And I had created like an online course for that, and had beta testers go through and do it. And that led into kind of my money healing, or healthy money mentoring, I call it. So just kind of one-on-one coaching following my 12-step method. And and that's where it's kind of led to. So really helping people, I guess, find their inner power and their courage to follow what it is their soul is telling them to do. And healing the blocks and subconscious beliefs, getting in touch with their higher power and their intuition, and learning to start following the guidance, because we definitely have all the answers that we're seeking. We've just got to tune in and listen to them. It's really interesting for me, because am being quite an analytical and numbers person. I used to live my life up in my head. So it was a big step for me to come into my heart and my body, and get in touch with all of that awesome stuff. But as I was coming out of the healing, like, I was I would have lots of dreams actually, and I had a way of interpreting them, and they gave me like my next step on my healing journey, like things that I needed to do to, come out of that sadness and grief and move more into love and joy and start to feel good again.
What were some of the aspects, Angela, that you went through? Like, what are some of the things that you went through in your healing journey? Because I've done a shit ton of stuff. Like, I've done hypnotherapy and counselling and energy healing, and I don't know. I've lost count. Kinesiology.
Yeah, I did most of it myself. So it was kind of a process of like feeling into the emotion and then releasing that, and then connecting with a higher power and my inner child, and kind of giving my inner child what she was needing. But yeah, a lot of it was connecting with this higher power source of energy and using that energy to kind of fill up the space with love and like a healing energy, and that's what healed me. So I'm not sure what you would call it exactly.
How did you come to know? Like, how did you come to know that that's what you were connecting with?
So yeah, I was using these guided quantum healing meditation tools from Melanie Tonya Evans. And I guess just through that process, like I started seeing things. So I can see energy. So yeah, I started seeing all this beautiful energy. Like, the only way I can describe it is kind of like maybe you've taken a psychedelic or a mushroom or something like that. I've never actually done that, but I imagine this is probably why people might take them, because it's beautiful.
Well, I can assure you I have in my life, and yes, there's lots of visuals that go on and occur, and that was probably part of my reawakening, because I was already pretty awake as a kid and that was shut down, and then my reawakening was like, hey, there's this whole other energy out there, because I've trained myself to see energy, but I feel it. So I can feel people turn up before they're here. I can feel, the energy that's sitting under what they're projecting or protecting. Mine's a little bit different in that way, and I can feel energy between people and what things are. And
so when I was releasing like the heavy emotions, it's just like that release opened up something that I hadn't experienced before. And so it was just tapping into that, all the wonderful kind of colors and geometrical shapes and lights and different things that I was seeing.
Sacred geometry. I'm so into that right now, just understanding more and understanding the old world healing that we're still uncovering. It's one of the best rabbit holes I've ever been down in my life. Tartaria. If you haven't been down there, have a look at it. It's amazing. And sound healing through structure, and it's pretty amazing actually.
I did quite a lot of sound healing through the process as well. And I was doing a little bit of Kundalini yoga too. But yeah, they had a sound healing class every Friday night, so that was like my Friday night entertainment.
Yeah, but what a beautiful and stark difference between, because I've done all the entertainment stuff, and I'm not saying it's not amazing to go to shows and concerts and all that stuff, but energetically for me now, I have to actually do a lot of work in protection, in just creating my own little bubble to go to large events, because people aren't aware of how much they project onto other people. So being sensitive like you, I just have to be really aware of my own energy and keeping in my bubble, and setting that up. So large events for me, like it's a process that I've got to go through to get to them. It's not like just jump in the car and off I go. I actually do need to do specific meditation and energy and setting it up. And yeah, I mean, it's like work. I don't know about you, but going on camera, connecting, doing this, there's a grounding process that I go through so that I'm dialed in, I'm here, I'm fully connected to you, and I'm in, and I'm fully present regardless of the distractions going on around me. Yeah, so does that happen for you now? Like, do you have to sort of move into that process as well?
Yeah, definitely. So that's one of the reasons I moved to the country. Yeah, and I actually went out on the weekend. I was up in Sydney with my partner, and he was photographing a comedian, and so I was at the comedy show, and we got invited to the after party, which was at a swanky cocktail lounge bar in Sydney. I was just like, oh God, don't know about that.
Haven't done the prep work. That's what I'd be thinking. Hang on a minute, where's some grass? I'm going to need to ground before this happens. I'm going to need to.
Yeah, but so yeah, I did go, but it was the first time I've been to somewhere like that in years. I would say definitely pre-COVID, and yeah, I kind of paid the price. Like when I got home back to Melbourne, like I've been sleeping 11-hour nights and things like that just to get over that experience. But,
Yeah, it
and it
does.
was kind of like a chill, sit on a couch type of place, but yeah, just being around that type of energy and kind of people drinking alcohol and yeah.
Yeah, I must admit, it's really, I haven't been a huge drinker for a long time. In fact, I don't drink at all anymore. And yeah, I wasn't aware of it because I'd go out and have a drink. And so energetically, I wasn't aware of the differences. But the more that I was not drinking and still going out, the more I was like, there is a huge difference. And also, I mean, you can drink and still be really deeply connected to yourself. I'm not saying that you can't, but you bring a different energy with you. And so I love it because I'm going to shift into it. So I still want to go back though and understand. I know that you're getting into healing. I know that you're understanding your spiritual awareness, but where did the 12 steps to heal thy money come from?
Where did it come from? So I guess I'm a very process oriented person and analytical, and so yeah, I kind of took my healing journey and put it into some steps that I could teach other people, my process that I went through, and yeah, that's how they came about.
And so was it the online course first and then, or did you have kind of like, okay, they're going to go through the online course and then they'll come out and working with it if they choose to work with me as a mentor? Was that sort of in place, or did that kind of just organically start to grow from that?
Yeah, that just started to organically grow from that. And people were like, I want to heal my money. How do I do that? So yeah, that's how it started really. Yeah, and I think for me the 12 steps was just a way to try and make some logical sense out of something that's extremely not logical.
I mean, I get it because I'm a soul coach, so I get it. Like, there's parts of the work that I do that people are just like, and clients when I work with them go, "That was amazing, but what was that? Like, what happened in there?" So I do have a structure to be able to feed it back into them and go, "This is what we did," because we love structure. I mean, our bodies are structure. Everything within us is our hair has structure. Do you know what I mean? We're structure. The world around us has structure. So we actually need it. So can you tell us a little bit about the 12 steps? Like what sort of, does it take you through?
Yeah.
I'm a client.
So my whole thing is that I infuse practical and spiritual. So the 12 steps are a mix of both. So we look at kind of where you're currently at financially. So looking at your assets and your liabilities and your cash coming in and your cash going out. Because a lot of people often think their finances are actually worse than what they actually are. So sometimes just sitting down and taking a look at everything, you can be a little bit surprised. You're like, oh, I am better off than I thought I was. So yeah, it's just taking stock of where you are at the moment. And then we start to look at some of your subconscious beliefs you have with money, and looking at how kind of your family line and your ancestral line may have influenced those, and also your upbringing and kind of yeah, just what you were surrounded with in your childhood and growing up. Can have a massive impact. And also looking at, like, as females, or for women, the kind of the feminine collective, and so how the female or the feminine has been persecuted for thousands of years actually has a huge impact on our money story as well. So yeah, a lot of women just have zero self-worth, don't believe they're worthy of money or earning money, or holding on to money, and it's something that's always been delegated to the husband or the masculine, and we've kind of been taught to be self-sacrificing and raise a family and sacrifice yourself in the process. Like I said, of mums, you know, would spend money on themselves last, or never. And I've always put the kids and the family first. So that's just how we've been raised for generations and generations. So it can take a lot of unpacking. And then we look at some of the underlying fears that people have with earning money, or, you know, even allowing themselves to earn money doing something that's their soul work, or, you know, something that comes to them as a gift, or, you know, comes naturally to them. Or even if it's fear of letting go of the security of a job, or fear of letting go of a toxic relationship and nothing coming to take its place. So then starting to look at how that lack and scarcity shows up in your life for you as well, and start to notice that it is a scarcity mindset that's going on. Because yeah, awareness of that, I believe, is the first critical step to being able to make a change. Because as you go through life, you've got to be aware of what's happening to kind of go, right, stop, I need to do something different, and kind of catch yourself in the moment.
Can we just go back for a second? Because I think it is interesting that you have a look at the masculine and feminine, like these ideals that we've been, because there is a false sense of what the masculine is, because it is a protective energy. It does want to contain, like that is the masculine energy. Its attention is out. It wants to contain, it wants to hold space. But it's been so falsely represented of, like, I'm the provider, protector, and, you know, the feminine's looked at as, because we want to be contained, that energy wants to be contained, that it's a weaker point. But it's just, yeah. So how, you know, what are your thoughts on that? Like, when you're getting people to understand that we've actually got these really false ideas around it.
Yeah, I think the masculine that we've been living under in our kind of patriarchal structure is a more toxic side of masculinity.
Oh, well, it's false masculine, so I 100%. But same as the feminine space. For me, we've got a false sense of femininity as well, and I just, you know,
it's
like,
not about, yeah, it's not about self-sacrificing or kind of martyrdom. That's the extreme end. So yeah, like a healthy masculine does provide the systems and structure. and that's something that we also work with in the course, and setting up some systems to help you start to save and invest and build wealth and create that abundance for yourself. Because you can start to attract clients and money flowing in, but then it equally will just keep flying out the door. So you've got to learn to be able to hold on to it. So it is coming into the healthy versions of each, with the masculine and the feminine. So not completely letting go of the masculine, because it would be awesome to be all furry and love and light all the time. But that's
and I think we often forget that, like, look, I spent a long time in my masculine, I must admit. So coming home back into my feminine has, been a huge awakening for me, and also a huge amount of grief as well, having to let go of all the stuff I've held on to within that. But knowing that we have both and actually using both, and you can have outward attention, you can contain as a female, you can be protective and, be the provider, so to speak. You can have systems and structure whilst having flow and chaos.
Yeah, you definitely need both, because and it's finding the balance, because like system and structure is good. You need it there to kind of have that base level support, kind of like the pillars of support, I call it, that you as a feminine can just your intuition and ideas. But too far along that spectrum, you kind of get like trying to control the outcome of things and like holding on to things too tightly, and that doesn't work either.
No, trust me, I've tried it for a long time. It doesn't work at all. So I want to know, who do you work with? Because I know, who are your clients?
So I work with, I call them conscious entrepreneurs. So they're kind of people who are heart-centered, soul-led, or kind of desire to be that, but just not quite sure yet how to let go of the security of what they've currently got. Anyone that fits that mold. I work with a lot of Pilates and yoga instructors and studios and health businesses. Lots of spiritual people are attracted to what I do. They kind of, when they meet me, they're like, wow, I didn't know someone like you existed. So a lot of people have, I guess, a lot of fear and stress around taxes and money, and I feel like I bring a beautiful, calm energy to something, so it can just kind of settle down that fear for people.
What's been some of your most memorable clients?
That's a good question. Memorable in a good way?
Yeah, just in like a way that even surprised you, the outcomes that they got or whatever it was.
Yeah. For me, I love connecting with beautiful souls, and you kind of get that instant connection with people. So I love having, quick chat about taxes, or enough long chat about taxes, but then it always inevitably gets talking about something spiritual. You get to connect on lots of different levels with people, so business and tax and spirituality and whatever they've got going on in their lives. So
Oh, I love it. And okay, so what are some of the what are some of the must-dos in business when it comes to, your finances?
The must-dos. So as a small business owner or a sole trader, or when you're starting out, definitely need to have a separate business bank account to put into, because if you mix business and personal together, it will provide lots of pain and suffering trying to do your numbers at the end of the financial year if you've got to troll through all the taps and $3 coffees and go through the myriad of transactions.
Yes, I've been there. Yes.
That's a definite must do. And definitely to get on an accounting system where you connect your bank account in there and it keeps track of everything for you. So you can look at your numbers regularly, kind of have little finance dates where you look at your money going in and your money going out, your profit or loss, wherever you're at. You can look at things like, you know, what's your most profitable service, or if you kind of break it down into that kind of detail. Just kind of have an understanding of the financial health of your business through looking at your numbers all in one place.
What kind of can you recommend any, like, where could people, because if people don't know this, where would they look? Like, what are some really good ones and easy ones for people to use?
Yeah. The three big ones in Australia are QuickBooks, MyOb, and Xero. I would say Xero is probably the most famous in Australia because it was first to market. They all do the same thing, but they just have different user interfaces, so it does come down to personal preference. I personally prefer QuickBooks, so I use that primarily with my clients, and it's also got a cheaper price point than the other one. So it's if you're just starting out, it's a good way to get in and kind of not have cost as a factor for avoiding it.
Yeah, okay, beautiful. And so what's another thing? Like, what would be like a must do? So yeah, must have a separate bank account, must have a way to track what you're doing.
Yeah. The third one for businesses would be what would I say?
Like, there's so many, but we'll just break it down.
Yeah. I think one thing I see a lot of people getting stuck on is knowing what they can claim for tax time. So I would say the third must-have is like someone on your team, so a good accountant to be able to ask questions and not feel like you have to do everything yourself all the time. I think tax is one of those areas like once you do it a few times, you do get a better understanding of what you can claim year in and year out. But yeah, have a good accountant, have someone that's on your team looking after you.
I love that. And you're right, you've got to find someone that you can align with and feel good about dealing with and be able to ask questions. I'm a person that asks a lot of questions, and I don't want to be fed back that they're silly or that they're not important or whatever it is. So you've got to feel connected and aligned with them as well, and that you can have that, you know, to and from, communication as well. So what does it look like to work with you? So people would do the 12 steps to heal thy money journey. How long is that for?
So I have an online course that goes for 12 weeks that runs through each of the steps.
Yep.
I also use that method in one-on-one coaching. So some people do prefer to have that more one-on-one connection. So yeah, and then with the finance side of things, like tax time obviously is a big time when clients come into the fold, and yeah, and then if as they grow, they've got to do BASs, and they might look at setting up a company or something like that. So looking at different tax structures. And then as people grow even more, like, starting to look at investing and setting up your structure of companies and different things to be able to invest and pay less tax. but legally. So there's definitely ways we can look at doing that.
I think people are always looking for that.
Yeah. So that's always a big common question I get is like, should I be setting up a company and when do I look at doing that? Yeah. And then, you know, I also work with some businesses who are maybe a bit further along in their journey and are ready to bring in like kind of like an equivalent of a finance manager into their business, to have that help without having to actually employ someone. You can have
That's beautiful.
as your little finance manager in the corner to be in your business.
Yeah, I think that's really good because there are some areas and businesses haven't reached a particular level where they actually need someone in-house, that it can just be someone that not pops in, there's some regular and consistent, you know, contact and work going on. But yeah, I've definitely seen that in small businesses as well, where there's that aspect of, you know, just getting to someone to come in one day or, you know, an X amount and doing, you know, a particular part of the workload that they can no longer.
Yeah. And I think probably what I bring that's different to a typical accounting firm is my feminine energy and intuition for one, but also I kind of look at myself as the bridge. Like I straddle the 3D ATO tax world and know all the rules, but I also live in the 5D world and I just can straddle both. So when I look at all these practical things like should you be setting up a company, I also bring in like the energetics of that and look at, you know, it's not always just about the costs and how much tax you're going to pay and things like that. It's like, you know, a company has an expansive energy to it. So, you know, it's going to give you that structure to allow you to grow and expand and not hold yourself back and things like that. So yeah, I just bring a different angle that typical accountant probably wouldn't consider.
But it's so needed because our world's changing and people are becoming far more self-aware and, you know, self-trusting and, you know, connected, you know, to themselves and other in a very different way. You know, it's starting to really understand that my needs are just important as yours and I care about your needs as much as I care about my own. And so we need that moving forward. So bringing in the energetics is everything's energy. It's like when people call people emo, you know, there's that name. I grew up with it as well. And I always laugh working in the field that I do in space. I'm like, I don't know why that's an insult because we're all emotional. Even if you're trying not to be emotional, you're actually still emotional.
Yeah.
So businesses have, sorry?
Just a rigid emotional if you're not showing it.
Yeah, but it's still happening all under there in the surface. It's still going on. It's just held in different parts of the body. But in business, there is still that undercurrent of energy as well, and the people that work there and, yeah, everything that goes on. So I've got a final 3 questions for you. My final 3 whats. So are you ready?
Go for it.
I was born ready. Just thinking. So what is well-being to you?
What is well-being? For me, well-being encompasses all aspects of life. So it's your mental health, your spiritual health, your emotional health, your energetic health, your physical health as well. And then, you know, throw in there like movement and nutrition and all those different elements. So yeah, it's looking at your body as a whole, not just its individual parts. And I think it's honoring your body and what it's needing in the moment as well.
That's beautiful. I love that. Because if no one's ever heard of well-being or thought about it in that aspect, that's a beautiful way to encompass all parts of well-being. So what are your must-do daily well-being practices?
They have changed over time. I I have a puppy now, so going for daily walks with my puppy is a non-negotiable.
For him,
And
I mean, whether you want to or not, Angela, he's making you.
yeah, so rain, hail, and shine, and -degree temperatures. It's all going on at the moment, but he loves it. So yeah, we have a beautiful lake here that we can walk along, and a nice kind of bush kind of golf course that's sitting amongst the bush that we often go in and stuff. So yeah, it's walking, it's connecting with nature. I one of the things I've come to really enjoy is like hugging a tree or just connecting with a beautiful tree, or laying on the rocks or on the grass looking at the trees. So yeah, connecting with nature. If it's summer, going for a swim, yeah, being in or near water, and meditating as well, daily. So just connecting in, even if it's just for a moment, with some oracle cards as well. Like, it doesn't have to be a huge 40-minute meditation or anything, but
I love it. And beautiful. I mean, look, meditation for me is a must in my life as well. And I know people always talk about, I can't meditate. Neither can anyone. Actually, it's a practice, and it's an ongoing practice throughout your life. So then the last what impact does having well-being practices and having well-being have on your life?
It's completely changed my life. I think it's been at the core of, shifting from that corporate self of mine where, I just ran on adrenaline probably, and looking for that quick fix outside of work and stuff like that. Like, it formed my health transformation. It became a part of my spiritual transformation. It underlies everything I do in my business, and yeah, it's huge.
I love it. Thank you, Angela, for being here today and sharing your story, your work, amazing work that you do. And if you're wanting to connect with you, how do people do that?
Probably the easiest way is just to check out my website, which is www.healthymoney.co.co. And my handles on Instagram and Facebook are at Healthy Money Co as well.
Beautiful. We'll have the links down below anyway in the bio, so you can click on those and connect with Angela. Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful time, your wealth of knowledge, and your amazing energy today with us. So if you guys enjoyed it, please let us know, comment, ask questions, like, share. We appreciate it all. Thank you for sharing your beautiful time and your energy with us in Connected Conversations. Bye for now.
Thanks so much, Emma.
To connect with Angela, head to healthymoney.co. To connect with me, head to emmamuir.com. Enjoy your day, and thanks for sharing your time.